guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Healing for the Soul podcast. I have our co-host Shannon here today, and I'm super excited. We were just chatting before, just kind of getting some ideas for what might be something fun for us to talk about today. And we got on the subject of the experience of love, and we both thought it would be a fun conversation to have. So thank you so much for being here again with us, Shannon. I'm excited because I know that this is one of your favorite subjects, and I know that we both have a lot of experience and funny stories to tell. So I'm excited to see whatever just kind of naturally and intuitively comes up for us. So how are you doing today?
I'm good. I got to visit lovely Georgia, and North Georgia, which I know is close to you. And I'm so sad I didn't get to see you. But speaking of love, fell in love with that state. It's the trees for me. Just love the trees.
Yes.
We have these giant pine forests, fir trees, in Oregon, but they tend to block the sun, because they're bushy. But in Georgia, I don't know what kind of trees they are, but they're just like really tall and just, faint little leaves, everywhere. So like a lot of sunlight.
I saw your picture. I think I saw your pictures. Yeah, and it looks a lot like that in Tennessee too.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Because I was driving to Virginia when I went to go speak at that holistic law conference. I was driving to Virginia, and I was like, I feel like I haven't left Tennessee because it was like just the same,
the same scenery,
the environment, and the vibe. It was very, very similar to Tennessee. It's funny. But speaking of that trip, I'm still paying for it because they are a Commonwealth state in Virginia, just in case anybody doesn't know. And they also have tolls everywhere, secret tolls that are not that obvious, apparently.
Yeah.
And so literally driving there, I got pulled over almost immediately for going the flow of traffic, and I got a mild speeding ticket. And this guy, I swear,
degrees, like hot sauce, like mild,
a mild speeding ticket. That's what he said. And
I'm so confused.
Whenever
what does
I'm
that
talking,
mean?
I don't. It means that I wasn't speeding recklessly, but I was speeding a little bit. So,
gotcha.
I was like, but when I say that this was straight out of like the universe trying to show me what a matrix we are in, I'm not kidding, because this dude looked straight up like the Super Troopers from the movie.
Did they have,
and he had the cop.
Did he have the stash?
He had the sunglasses, the mustache, to a T. He was the character. And he was not mean. He was not nice. He was just kind of there. And I was like, this is the Matrix.
I'm getting pulled over right now because of the speed in which I traveled on this road, the earth, that really belongs to nobody and everyone. And someone's going to now get money from me because I was going too fast on this road on the earth.
Well, and then it continued. What I went into Virginia, into the main downtown section, because that's where the event was happening. And I remember on my way to the event, I got lost, of course, because it was like, I'm used to like straight lanes, not blocks,
Yeah.
And so it was like, go around this block and go around that block. Well, I had to do that a couple of times. And apparently in that loop that I was stuck in, one of those roads was a toll. And so I went on this toll road twice without even knowing it. That's how I know. Like I was paying so much attention because I was lost. I didn't see any signs for any tolls. So that's how I know it was hidden. And so
I was paying attention this time.
And I got this thing in the mail saying you rode a toll road twice. So it's $1 per time. But because you didn't pay it, then it's an extra $30 for a fee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is even happening where you have to pay to go on this main road? I don't understand. Because I called and I was like, what is the point in a toll, lady? And she's like, to keep the flow of traffic going. And I'm like,
no, it's not.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Lies. Lies.
It seems like lies to me. And I'm sure somebody
everyone has
listening,
to slow down for
I
the
love
camera to catch the
tolls.
license plate. So no.
Right.
No. Wrong.
And that's another, it's so funny. Like, I'm like, does anybody appreciate tolls? Like, and I'm like, I know that I'm talking about this from like the negative perspective. So I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there.
Pay to go faster than everyone else. It's a class system.
We love tolls. And I'm like, I don't like them.
It's just another matrix class system. If you have the money, you can bypass everybody else. That's it.
I mean, that's true. It's just funny. But we were talking about, before we got on here, we were talking about like illusions and like what are some common illusions that society and even ourselves get caught up in. Because just because it's an illusion doesn't always mean that it's bad to be caught up in it. It can only be bad to be caught up in it when it's creating a lot of suffering or attachment or drama. That's when I would say to check on your illusions. But before we got on here, we were talking about illusions and what are some typical things we get caught up in. And something recent, it was so funny. We started, Shannon mentioned love. And yesterday was mine and my boyfriend's 2-year anniversary. And I had made a post about it. And me and Shannon were talking about how it's a choice and that love is not this thing. It's this idea of being in love is actually just a delusion that we like to put ourselves in. And I really loved when she said that.
It's a delusion that we all really want, though.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, it's not necessarily a bad delusion or goal to have, but I do think you can experience that delusion from a higher, or I hate to say higher or better place, because that's not necessarily the truth, because those words are hard to say. But just from a more, I like the word true, from a more true or pure experience. If you know the truth, then you can experience it from a more expanded perspective. And we were talking about how the chemicals that are happening are based on like attraction and different things. They're not actually based off of this idea of love. And I can say for a fact, after being with my boyfriend for the last 2 years, and I made a post about it, it's not been easy. And this is the first time in my life where I have really gotten clear that it's my choice. It's my choice to.
We're talking about long-term and commitment. It is absolutely a choice every single day. It's a choice.
Yeah.
I think that those, listen, love is my favorite drug. If there's any of my vices, I could cold turkey cut in one day, be done. Okay. I didn't really ever understand addiction until I realized my unhealthy relationship at the time. I was absolutely a fiend and an addict. And the words came out of my mouth to my girlfriend. I like need rehab to get away from this guy. I said those words. And I would have paid any amount of money in that moment to find some kind of relationship to self-rehabilitation, get away from, unhealthy, toxic relationship that literally is like a magnet. Like, later I learned about trauma bonds about the same time that I hooked up with you and you started helping me also get closer to myself, which ultimately pulled me out. But, there's an array of hormonal, effects that bonding with somebody has. And in the beginning, they're all your infatuation or obsession or whatever, all these feelings of attraction and hope, oxytocin. They are like all those hormones that help you bond to somebody, but they are delusional in the fact that they are temporary. And I think a lot of people think, oh, this means that I really love this person. Like there's something here. But in reality, if you have a brain and if you have a pulse, you can have those feelings towards almost anyone if there's a little bit of attraction. And it has nothing to do with love. That's attraction. I don't think anyone, we don't talk about the steps in which this happens. And the reason that relationships either thrive or they don't is because it comes down to a very specific skill set. Relationships, have skill sets of communication and repair when there is damage, and security in yourself enough to not be defensive and actually be able to listen. And then just your free will choice every day. It's a choice. Am I going to sit in this uncomfortable feeling with this person? They're annoying me, or am I going to go find someone else at the touch of a button on my phone and complain about them, whether they're the same sex or opposite sex or whatever, attraction to sex, whatever. Could be your
I love
mom,
that you're saying that. Yeah,
it's a
I love
choice.
that you're saying. Yeah, I love that you're saying that it's the choice, and also like you mentioning, am I going to stay even though I'm annoyed, or am I going to go get this thing that I can get over here with the touch of my hand, but knowing I'm going to be complaining about this person for whatever reason right immediately after. And for me, like, I feel like that's what that awareness of my relationship with a romantic partner or someone that I'm going to be intimate with cannot thrive unless I am doing the work on myself, because I know that my relationships are a mirror to me. And I know that if there's something wrong in my romantic relationship, then there's something happening within me just as much as there is happening with that person. And the reason that me and my boyfriend are even able to stay together is because we do that back and forth between, okay, we're showing up, we're having these experiences, something goes wrong. Okay, now we both have to kind of separate for a second and go into ourselves and get back into alignment with each other.
Yeah.
The only reason we're able to even get through some of these harder things that we've been through, and we've been through a lot these past 2 years. Last year my mom got sick, and me and him both had no choice but to become her caregiver, and he really stepped into those roles. And he works a really hard job, long hours, early wake up, late time home. So he's got his own stuff that he's dealing with. And so I have to be able to be in a place where I understand him and care about him enough. And the only way I know for a fact that I can even be in that place where it's not all about me, and I'm wondering if he's going to be able to come home and take care of me and put myself on this like pedestal, because I'm known to do that in my relationships, is to not really think about that person and be selfish, think about myself. And so putting myself in check and making sure, yeah, I'm the princess. That's how I grew up. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I grew up spoiled.
You're my dad, for me.
You're here for me. Yeah. And so it's really easy. That used to be a big pattern of mine in my relationships. And, taking that time, there was a whole year after that big trauma that I went through with my divorce and everything that followed right after that. It sent me into celibacy. I actually took just a personal vow to celibacy, not for I knew it wasn't going to be for forever, but I knew that I wanted to do it until I felt like I would know when I was ready to kind of get out of it. And I ended up being in this place where I disconnected from any type of romantic or sexual experiences just with myself or anybody else for a whole year. And during that time, I was really able to harness all of that energy and use it for something else. I had to think about something else, because I grew up with a sex addiction because I was molested at a young age. So I knew that these things where I would have to be in these relationships, and I knew my patterns. Finally, I was learning my patterns after I took that year off of just being within myself, understanding myself. And then what was so cool though was you're not actually able to heal a lot of your relationship wounds. You can heal like some things like in that's happened in the past with forgiveness and reconciliation, and then just doing emotional inner healing work. But you won't be able to actually heal some of the bigger issues in your relationship traumas until you get into a relationship again.
Yeah.
And once I got into this relationship with Jacob, and I believe he's my twin flame, and again, everything is an illusion within an illusion, an illusion. So these are all just labels. They're stories, but I like them. I play with them. I think that they're cool. I think that they help us understand who we are and the universe and how things are working. And I think it gives us purpose because I think if we lean in on nothing matters, it gets bleak. And as somebody who comes from a depressed background, like somebody who can easily go into depression, I know for me, what keeps me out of depression is focusing on what is good about my experience.
So what brings you joy? What brings you joy? Does it really matter? Like, doesn't even matter if it's fact based. It's all just what makes you, happy.
Yeah. But coming back to what I was saying about like the relationships and the patterns and the mirroring, there's a huge level of self-awareness that is required and self-work that is required when you're in a relationship. Because what I quickly realized was, oh, my romantic partners, they're not here for me. They're not here for me. These ideas and these delusions that I get caught up in. And now I'm understanding why my dreams aren't coming true, because my dreams are unrealistic and they're not in the highest good of me or anybody else involved. So why would they happen? Why would they come into fruition? And because it's so easy for our minds to
we've all
make
been
up these
programmed.
stories.
We've all been programmed.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we have that expectation. And it is,
right.
The Disney movies and every other love story, or, going back to Shakespeare, that's all just in writing. It's like we've been sold the delusion of love, and what it might feel like and what we're supposed to be expecting from it. And that is a big fat lie.
Well, and I think you do. I think, coming back to what you were saying about the free will and the choice of it all, I think, that is what sets the delusion from the experience apart.
Right.
And why the delusion can be possible to achieve, but it might not be the way that you think it is. Like, at least that's what's happening for me.
Well, there's like true love, and then there's everything leading up to it that's attraction. And I think we're getting, a lot of people are really getting that mixed up. Attraction, although it can last through, years, decades, maybe, has a different kind of pull. It's chemical. It's not necessarily spiritual. And love, being the most powerful emotion in the world, is steady, it's calm, it's consistent, there's like the butterflies and the,
and I definitely think that
I can't
know
eat.
the difference.
Huh? I didn't hear you.
Yeah. And I definitely think that there comes a time where you are able to clearly tell the difference. At least I know there was for me with my partner.
Because you found it. But like, here's something that came to my mind this weekend. In a bathroom stall, peeing when I was tipsy in a bar. I realized the relationships that you have starting at, infancy and coming through whatever. I'm a 44-year-old woman who has just realized, if you have never been loved correctly, if you have accepted love that is not what you deserve, because you're literally replaying and mimicking the love you got as a child. You have to get to a self-love, a place of self-love to even recognize true love, what real love is. Infatuation, I was literally in that loop for so long, not realizing, if you never if you don't know your worth, if you've never been loved correctly, it's a foreign feeling that you don't even know how to process. This is where you get the girls that will turn the nice guy down. Doesn't even feel right. Oh, well, he does everything right and he's steady and he's there. I don't know how to process that. Never had that. And so until you get to a place with yourself and a place of self-loving and understanding your worth, you're going to have these experiences over and over and over again that look like love, feel like love, have a lot of hope. You have the delusion of what it's going to feel like 2, 3, 4, 5 months in, maybe even, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in. And the entire time, had you been connected to yourself, you maybe never would have chosen this person, and it fizzles, and it will fizzle every single time because there's no foundation.
Right.
And it's really sad. Like when that came to me, I was like heartbroken for my older self, heartbroken for every woman and man who go through the pain and suffering of wanting so badly this thing that we all want as human beings, this like love that stays, this love that sticks, this love that is forever, and realizing it's not even going to be recognizable to most people if they have never had it until they return to themselves.
That's why the self-work is so important, because I definitely agree with you. I think a lot of things changed for me, and what I ended up attracting into my life. Not that it was like completely different, but there was a huge shift in what I was able to. I want to say, like, I've heard this before, and I've experienced this for myself. Like, when you start doing like the inner work, it's not that your reality changes, it's that you change. So because you change, your perspective on everything changes. And because your perspective on everything changes, you might start making new decisions. And because of those new decisions, it leads to new experiences and new results and new people entering
the
into
entire creation of your life changes. And it all comes down to, and Heather, I say this a lot, it all comes down to how much you love yourself.
Yeah.
And how you seeing the truth. The truth is, there is no high value woman, high value man. That term infuriates me. We all have value that we will never even be able to comprehend on this life in human form.
Yeah.
When you connect to yourself and do that self work, you start to remember who you are.
Yeah.
And what that means. When you start to remember
and
who you are,
once you start connecting,
then your worth to yourself is undeniable. And the choices that you make and the people you allow in and the treatment you allow of yourself will automatically reflect that. And so then
and you immediately get to start tapping into your unawakened magic, and you start getting to get glimpses of your potential. And not only do you get glimpses into it, but you start getting to experience these little miracles. Like it's so funny. I literally go back and forth. Like sometimes, like I'll have to, give myself readings or do whatever just to kind of check in and see like what's up with me and like my plan and what I need to focus on, and maybe like my blind spots, because we all have them. And that card of, I kind of was like, what's my purpose, like as a whole, just to kind of help me reconnect with some things and get some more clarity. And that card came up, was a guardian of unawakened magic and creative potential. And it just resonated so hard with me. And because that's exactly what this journey of like going in and discovering yourself, that's exactly what it does, is it gives you this opportunity to experience these things, like maybe as a kid that you're like, oh, I want to be on TV, or oh, I wish I was a medium, or oh, I wish I was a psychic, oh, I wish I could read tarot cards, or oh, these abilities and these gifts and these talents and these things are so cool. Because I know that that's how I was, and I know you're similar too. Growing up, you watch these people and you're like, oh my god, I match. That's kind of like the vibe. And it's not even necessarily about like becoming famous or whatever. It's more so just being able to step into your passion, right? You're in co-creation, and
Yeah.
and not worrying about like if you're going to be rich, famous, memorable, all of those, material things that don't matter. Those things could happen, but those are not the reasons that you get into your passion. And once you go into this place from yourself, you really get to awaken. Sometimes you have passions, and sometimes you have these skills or these talents, and you don't really know where they're going to take you or how expansive they are until you go inward. And sometimes you don't even know that you have any I have this client that I'm working with now, and she's been working with me for a long time. And so a couple of years ago, we started the process of her going inward, and now she's, kind of come back into my vortex again. And now we're working on like, she's just feeling really called to work from home or be home more. And so we just started kind of exploring that calling or that nudge that she was having. And we just kind of went through these different options. We went down a few different rabbit holes. And here we are about a month in, and she's getting these really weird, miraculous requests from people she knows to help. They're like, hey, would you be my assistant to do this? Or, hey, would you help me with this? And it's all things that she could do from home. And now she can be home with her daughter. And so all of these miraculous things are just popping into her reality simply because we've done that focus. We've been able to tap into her. She's so connected to herself. She went from having so much anxiety and depression, she couldn't even keep a job. And so our first goals together were to help her kind of get out of these funks that she was in, because I think her insurance was running out. She was on these medications that she couldn't afford to take anymore. She wanted to get off of them, but safely. And so with her being along with her doctor, we were able to get her off of her depression medicines. She got a job. She's held a job, and now she's ready to and then so 2 years later, she's been doing this. She's been killing the game. She's loving herself. Her relationships are thriving. And now she's ready to go deeper, and she's able to go deeper. And now all of these opportunities, these amazing opportunities are opening up for her simply because she went in and she started changing the way that she was looking at herself and her life, and the answers, like the untapped wealth of treasure and knowledge and answers and infinite potential that she carries inside of her was just awakened. Yeah. And I'm watching her.
And there's no like degree, there's no amount of money, there's no quicker way to happiness and what it is that you really want than to go inside, heal, and gain self-love, because that's when you tap into power that's directed from your higher self. It's you don't, I remember being so lost before I knew myself, and like reaching out to something else with, of course, there's, I believe in God, I believe in higher power, but
you always felt like it was outside.
Yeah, your true North Star is you.
It's right here.
Is right here. And in my opinion, a higher power or source can only guide your true will and the choices that you've made for yourself, your direction. And then everything else, the universe just comes and provides. But until you really, truly have a belief in your own ability and you make a decision, everything else is kind of at a standstill until it comes. We are individual creators. So I tell people there's more power in you sitting at home in peace and stillness than there ever will be outside running, hitting the pavement, doing the work, to putting the action in. No, you really don't need any outside
Well,
anything.
and and that's what was coming up for me as you were talking about this. Like one of the biggest paradigm shifts that I would love, that I'm so passionate about shifting for, people that come into my world, is this idea that the power is in what you're doing. Because the power is not in going to church, reading the Bible, doing the work, meditating, or on something specific, or journaling, whatever the thing
Those are
is.
all
Not, but
tools to
here's
hold
just,
your vibration, maybe, but that's not where the power comes from.
yeah, that's exactly it. I think we get so caught up because I know from my own personal experience, I know how easy it is to give the credit to the relic, the drugs, the psychedelics, whatever it is that you are using to propel you forward into whatever you're working on at the time, whether it's spirituality or it's business or it's relationships or whatever. And the answers are always right inside of you. And the only way, from my experience, to really experience that inner wealth and be able to be aware of it, because I've seen plenty of creators just unconsciously create miracles and magic, and they're not even aware of it. And then I've also seen unconscious creators create fear and
Chaos.
suffering and failure and loss because they are so caught up in it. I remember I was having a session with the girl that I was just sharing her, her transformation story about, and we were having an in-person session, and one of my neighbor, he was over with us, and he was just kind of hanging out while we were having our session, and he was sitting beside us. So while we were talking, we were chatting, and he was in his own little world. And he is an older man, and he's always so scared. He's always so scared of there being snakes and spiders and bad things. Like, outside is dangerous. There's glass everywhere. You can't be barefoot. Be very careful. Be very cautious. That's him. Like, he's very into these like fears and in these delusions. Very worried about him. And so the kids, of course, randomly, because his presence were there, they were like, we're taking our shoes and socks off. They're like up at the playground right by him, and they're taking their shoes and socks off, and they're running back and forth everywhere. And we're like, me and my client are just like, you know what, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. They got to learn or whatever. And my neighbor, he proceeds to like instantaneously manifest multiple pieces of glass out of nothing. Because I'm looking at the ground, there's no glass anywhere, and every time we like go back and forth from looking at him or paying attention to him and talking to each other, he's like, and here's another piece of glass. And I'm just like, are you just manifesting this glass and out of thin air because of your delusion in it? And it was just so funny. And then something that happened right after that, just to kind of continue to mess with my mind, there was no wind. It was a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, you know how like when it's windy and there's leaves on the ground, and they're like, the leaves will do like a tornado thing. Mm-hmm. Well, there was no wind, but there was this tornado of leaves. And I was like, wow, that is the craziest thing that I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden the leaves start to levitate up into the sky, and they're just hovering there. And I'm telling you, there's no wind, and I don't know how these leaves are in the air right now, and I'm freaking out. So then I like tell my client and my neighbor, I'm like, look at those leaves. They're just levitating. There's no wind. Like, what's going on? And he will not believe me that there's a miracle happening right now. He doesn't, it's like, you can just tell he doesn't believe in miracles or like things like this. Not necessarily, and that's not necessarily true, but like random miracles don't
these leaves. He can't see the leaves at all.
He says those are not leaves, those are birds. Yeah. They are standing in the middle of the sky with no wind, and they're just hovering there, and I am blown away at this. And he's like, that is not leaves, that is birds. And because I am so astonished by what's happening, and he is so convinced that it's not happening. My client looks and she can't tell what it is. She can't tell if it's leaves, she can't tell if it's birds. She's so confused. And so my neighbor's like, I'm gonna go get my binoculars, and I'm like, they'll be gone by the time you get back. And of course he went and ran and get the binoculars, comes back, the leaves are, they just floated off into nothing. And I was just like, and I watched the whole time from the leaf tornado to the levitation to the floating off into nothing. And I'm like, these are leaves. And that was the craziest.
That's a great example of like each person's perception, their own reality.
Yeah.
And
your
it coming
world
together.
Is shaped. Yes, your world is shaped based on what your belief systems and your operating systems are running on. And I feel like that's a wonderful example of how there are multiple timelines, realities, and dimensions happening all at one time. Because I feel like I was having one reality, one experience, my neighbor was having another, and my client was having a third. So right there, that's 3 timelines, realities, and dimensions coming together. And it's the craziest experience to be able to see it from this new perspective. It's kind of like I'm riding above my being, and I'm the avatar, and I know everything that's going on. I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
It really does. And seeing life like that and not looking for anything particular, but like knowing that and seeing your life as you can create in each moment. And you do have a piece and a part and all the random chaos really does make your life like colorful. Then you start to realize, okay, well, if I like seeing butterflies and bunnies and birds, it's like, now I'm going to see them more. And now I do, or if I like, seeing handsome men or having handsome men serve me.
I think too, it's not even about what you like or what you don't like. I think it's
like,
deeper.
What you want to see more of, like
what you're focused on.
What you're focused on is definitely what you get. But I'm saying once you've gotten to the point where you are a deliberate creator and you've decided what it is that you want, and then all of a sudden, my friends joke, they're like, Shannon, no matter where I go, if I'm with you, you get like the perfect parking spot. And I'm like, I call it princess parking. And it doesn't matter what country or what state or what car I'm in. I don't have to be driving the car. It could be somebody else. It's just something that I have mastered. No, I wish I could do this with like finding the right man or having like whatever, pick something else more important. But for whatever reason, that's something that I felt I deserved. It's something that I really wanted. It's something that I focused on, years ago, decades ago. And I have practiced that vibration of faith, just knowing I'm going to get it. And then then you start having evidence. The more evidence you get that you actually have control over that, the faster you're able to until it's just not even a thought. You don't have to put any work into it. You don't have to think about it. You don't even have to focus on it. It's already there. You've created that. And it doesn't matter and it doesn't matter where you're at or who else is involved. It's going to happen. And so that's like my base, my little base core, like manifestation reminder for myself is like, if you did that with the parking spot, and now even if other people, like you're saying, other people are it can affect, like in your belief with other people and how other people affect your little cocktail of vibration, and that was powerful for me. Like, okay, no matter where I go, it doesn't have to be in my neighborhood or the places I frequent. I don't even have to be driving. It doesn't have to be my vehicle. And for me to still have that there, so when I went to Georgia, there was like no parking. It was in this really hip, gentrified gay neighborhood. And he's like, we're never going to find parking. Like, we're going to have to walk. And I was having like, inflammation issues. I'm like, in heels. Okay. I was like, but Jordy, I really think that we're going to find something. He's like, okay. So he had just picked me up from the airport. Right. So this is his first experience. He's like, we'll hit a block and come back around. Hit a block, came back around. Someone, pulled out of right in front of where we were supposed to go. And he's like, how did you do that? I'm like, princess parking. This happens. And then, of course, everywhere we went after that consecutively, he was on it too. He was like, where's your spot, Shannon? Where is it? I know we're going to find one right in front. Always, always did.
That's so funny. I always look at those little things. I always look at those little things like the universe winking at you, just kind of letting you know, like, hey, I'm still here. For me, like, it's the numbers on the clock for me. Like, I have a certain set of unique numbers that pop up almost every time, like, I'm looking at the clock. So those are my little, like, just little winks, like, you're not alone. We never left you. We're always here, even if you don't believe it. Like, it's okay, because that's like what my my internal operating system. So that what's so important, I think, and we're getting close to our time here. So I think that this will be a good place to wrap us up. But I think it's so important to work on what is internally driving you, like, because when you know what's internally driving you and how you are operating, the easier it is for you to understand why you are or are not doing something, or how you're showing up, or why you should or shouldn't do something, because it just kind of helps you understand, like, who you are and how you were built from your life experiences, because that's what we're made up of. We're made up of moments. And those moments are defining who we are, and they will define you right into the ground if they go unchecked. Because if they're unchecked just means unconscious. And if we're unconscious of what's driving us, then, I've seen so many clients over the years, they have fought their way to the top, and they have spent 20 or 30 years building careers in something that they didn't even really want. They've spent so much time doing things, going to school, investing money, working so hard in different things that were never actually theirs. It was their parents, or it was somebody else's.
Personal desires is always the answer. Whether they be something that's really not acceptable to your parents or society in general, it doesn't matter. That is the answer to your soul purpose, your desires. You can always find, and if you don't follow those, your manifestations will come out accordingly. You may even get, like you said, my client like worked their way to the top. You maybe even get to the top. Well, guess what? How do you feel about it? Are you happy?
Well, and I think too, I think, just having, like, I'm, being extremely empathic, and experiencing these things with my clients. The scariest part about these situations is they can be so unconscious that they think they are going after their personal desires, but they're not connected with themselves enough to realize the different voices in their heads and really get back into, like, what they want. And I think there's so much that gets answered when you do, like, inner child healing, or like reparenting yourself, or just kind of going in and giving yourself all those little things along the way that you feel you missed out on growing up or as a teenager, and just being that person that gives yourself that unconditional love and forgiveness, and going in and having these experiences. Like, for example, I had a client, she grew up, she's actually one of our coaches at Soul Healer Institute now. She grew up in a place where she had a lot of siblings, so there was not a lot of attention on her. And one year they forgot about her birthday. And so one of our sessions, we spent that time going back in to that little girl, and adult Ellie was able to, within her mind's eye, go in and take young Ellie to out to go and have a good birthday that year. And that was so healing for her. And I think that we start to really figure out what we actually need when we fill those holes of the things that we've pushed down or swept under the rug. Oh, we didn't get that attention. Oh, we weren't paid attention to. We weren't unconditionally loved, or this, that, and the other thing. We were rejected, neglected, abused, abandoned, whatever the things that are
Yeah.
happening, whether they're extreme or not. And we go back in these healing modalities and we give ourselves those little fragments that we feel we're
I think
missing.
those are all things that naturally occur when you're just conscious of getting to know yourself better, and you're being on your journey of getting to know yourself. All of those things are going to naturally occur because you're now giving an open space to yourself, and those desires come up. They come up and you can see them, and you can see the holes, which really on the flip side are your desires. It's like a lack of whatever was the desire was. And then as an adult, obviously we have more resources and we're able to do them for ourselves. Those are things that I feel like have come up. I don't even have to necessarily consciously do the work. It's like when I'm in the space of just sitting still with myself, all of those things bubble up to the surface, and then you're able to pick them up and do something with them, and then pick them up, and it's like a little wave of healing along the journey that you're going through. And that's why I'm sure you've seen this with your clients too. There's no like real right or wrong way or like system, that they're all helpful, but it's like all you really have to do is be still.
Yeah.
And
I
open.
definitely think like I would consider you, as I would consider you, Sue, Ellie, and anybody else that might be with me at Soul Healer Institute in that state of mastery, because I believe like that is why you are able, because I am too. I have those moments where I don't have to do anything specific. Things come up, they're transmuted. Things come up, they're transmuted. But I know in the beginning, I was so anxious and so caught up in the stories and the narratives that were in my mind that I had to consciously put it all out and do those little tools and exercises. It took a few
Kind of
times
tease
of
it all
practicing
out.
them.
Mhm.
Yeah, but after you, what I think those tools are best for, especially somebody in the beginning stages of this process, in my opinion, they are space clearers. Because when you're caught up in the anxiety or the stress of the stories that are happening from the past or the present or the worries of the future, all of this stuff can feel so congested. And when you're congested with all of this noise happening, those tools, what I think those tools do is really help you clear all of that gunk
Yeah, build the
out so that
environment to
you
be able
can
to be still. Yeah.
yeah, so that you can exactly build the environment and the foundation within yourself to be able to be still and not need to do all this work or whatever to transmute it all. And I every single time I'd ever done any type of sales call or sales process, it was always highlighted that the goal was to help you awaken your own skills,
Mhm.
so that you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful. That was like my biggest thing that I wanted to make sure that I provided for my clients was I not only taught them systems and tools that can help you clear that space so that you can get to that place of mastery and self mastery and self connection, and but that was the biggest thing that I wanted to be able to do for my students and my clients, is to give them these things so that they could get there for themselves
Mhm.
without somebody needing to hold their hand. Even though in the beginning, having your hand held while you're clearing the space is very useful, in a group
Yes.
setting or in a
Yeah.
private one-on-one setting with a mentor that you trust. And I'm just so thankful to have these things in place. But we are coming up on our time, so I'm going to wrap us up here. I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. We talked a little bit about a lot of different things, a lot of different subjects, but I enjoyed our talks today, Shannon. So thank you again for being here. And if you guys found value, please be sure to share this with people that you think might benefit. And be sure you're subscribed to us on your favorite platform to catch up on, to see future episodes. And we are just so thankful that you're here tuning in with us. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.